And it is so ironic that now 3D is coming back because cinema is trying to woo back its audience to the theaters because of other innovations diminishing the audience from box office participation. Now, however, what became a little bit worse was sometime in the late 60s and early 70s when television became a little bit more accessible and cheaper. Now, what happened next? Whereas before every household had a single television set at home, now with television cheaper and more accessible, every room had a television set. Every room had the opportunity to provide its own program in which every individual family member can choose what kind of TV show he or she would want to be entertained in. I always make it a joke each time I give this issue in class, and I always make references to blackouts and brownouts. I said I realized that I had a family each time there is a brownout at home. Because that's the only time we all get together and get to talk. I remember that time, when we had these big brownouts in Manila, that was the time I really learned to appreciate my father. Okay, because the first thing I would do after dinner is rush to my room and watch my own TV set. In other words, what I am pointing out is that with the accessibility of media, television refrained from being a community or a seminal activity of a group of people. Television viewing became an individual and exclusive activity. Now, this even became a little bit much worse, okay, because we now have the luxury of choice. We have the premium of individuality in choosing what we deem as our entertainment. With the separation of people exercising their own choice and determining what is their entertainment, mass media completely changed its complexion and completely changed its attitude in terms of programming. Mass media became defined by the word I because it is my choice, my way, my time, and definitely my big deal. What did this all point out? A very big irony. The world became more accessible. Media became bigger by being smaller. What do I mean by this? Media became bigger because it is so much easier to gain access to information and to find ways and means of entertainment, to find ways and means of validating oneself. But at the same time, it became smaller because you can carry it in your tote bag or even in your pocket. And what is its most adverse effect? The idea of mass media became anomalous. Why was it anomalous? Because it has refrained from being a community activity. If I ask you, how many of you, with a show of hands, actually watch movies and TV shows by downloading them from the internet, you would be surprised. Okay? Because it would all point out now that watching TV shows and watching the internet, watching TV shows and watching movies do not only comply with screening time, do not only comply with community activity, or do not even comply with studio programming. You get your entertainment and you define your world according to your own time and your own terms. What is so ironic is that mass media was meant to bring us together to share information, but with recent developments and in technology, it did not do that. It actually creates a world of isolation. Worse yet, there are alternative forms of entertainment which are already being equated with mass media, and that is social media. Like, how many of you actually give up watching television because you're so hooked on Facebook? How many of you actually make an entertainment form out of your lives by endlessly twittering and turning your life into one big reality show? Worse yet, how many of us can no longer differentiate what is entertainment and what is reality because we allowed mass media to become us? Our entire lives have become the Kardashians. The future of mass media is all about having an individual choice. The future of mass media is no longer about bringing out a sense of community and the results can sometimes be expressed in most dismal fashion. Ironically, in our desire to be plugged in 24/7 and to be attached to the world and to be part of the world, in our desire to emphasize our individuality, what we have given up so sadly is our sense of self-identity. All of a sudden, if you realize and observe the kind of culture that popular media is creating, it is a culture based on so-called globalization, but also a culture based on commercialization and oneness based on least common denominator. It is about man being part of the big wild world while being completely alone on his own. It is about man deluding himself that he is plugged into the world and knows everything and is part of its germinating activity, but at the same time realizing that he is on his own. It is about man realizing that mass media no longer exists. Mass media is a virtual reality that he creates in his own life and his own time. And that is the whole essence of the lesson here. In our desire to be one with the world, we end up just being one. Thank you.